Is it working? I believe so. Finally. Okay. Sorry, my computer has been acting up forever, and I'm still trying to figure out how to fix this. Perfect. Okay. Oh, let me just get started. I don't know where to look. I don't know if I should look here or look here at the camera. If I look at the camera, I can't really tell like how my posture and body language is, and also it just feels awkward staring at this little black box. Feels like I'm staring into someone's soul. So I'll just kind of look in this area for the sake of this video. Anyways, let's get started. How often do we find ourselves feeling stuck between two choices that don't fully represent our values or beliefs? And how does that affect the way we view our democracy? Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jose Palacios. I'm a senior here at SST, and in these next few moments, I will be presenting my capstone research project. So, by definition, the two-party system is a political system in which two major political parties consistently dominate the political landscape. And yes, that is a lot of politicals in one sentence, but bear with me. Over these past few months, I have conducted research regarding this topic in order to develop a strong argument as to why I believe this system fails us as a nation. In these next few moments, I will break down the concept, diving into its intricacies, kind of just discussing where this system comes from and why we have it. I will then discuss why this system, needs revision. What are the flaws? Where does it go wrong? And finally, I will discuss a plausible solution as well as the future of American democracy. So, as mentioned before, the two-party system is designed for two large political parties. It wasn't a policy that was enacted or a system that was petitioned, but rather a result of years of compiling beliefs that slowly formed itself into two entities. In order to put this into context, we must better understand the core principle at play in American democracy. And that is representation. The objective is to represent the will of the people while ensuring, the process remains efficient and structured. In representative democracy, citizens vote occasionally in elections to elect leaders that represent their own values, as well as to be able to hold these leaders accountable. And that is the idea. That is the idea that our founding fathers had for this nation, just representation. To advance this point, President George Washington, as he said in his farewell address, he advised against the formation of political factions. He believed that political parties would divide the nation, fostering rivalry and animosity, which could undermine the common good. Washington viewed these factions as a significant threat, to the fabric of democracy which had been woven by himself as well as the rest of the founding fathers. And even though our founding fathers did not advocate for a two-party system per se, that is in fact what is developed in our nation over time. And so let's just take a look at these two political entities. The first of which being the Republican Party. The Republican Party is one of the two major political parties in this nation, generally associated with more conservative or right-leaning ideology. It advocates for limited government intervention in the economy and reduced government spending. Republicans typically support a strong national defense, individual freedoms, and traditional values. As for the social issues, the party often aligns with more conservative positions. Economically, the GOP favors policies that promote business growth, entrepreneurship, and personal responsibility while opposing excess regulation and government overreach. Simply put, the party's core values include fiscal conservatism, individual liberty, and a belief in a strong, self-reliant nation. On the other side of the aisle, the Democratic Party is, it's the other. Well, first of all, I should preface this by saying it is the other major political party in this country, as it is generally associated with a more liberal and or progressive ideology, for lack of a better term. The party traditionally supports policies that promote social equality, environmental protection, labor rights, and expanded access to healthcare and education. Democrats tend to advocate for a stronger role in government when it comes to addressing social and economic issues, with a focus on reducing inequality and ensuring civil rights for marginalized groups. On the economic front, they typically support a mixed economy with regulations aimed at protecting workers, consumers, and the environment. The party's values include social justice, diversity, and inclusion. And and at face value, one might believe that these two parties represent an honest and fortified democratic system. However, in actuality, this couldn't be further from the truth. According to an article in the Suffolk Journal, a student newspaper of Suffolk University, the author Ellie Gregory details the extent in which political polarization hinders political and social progress. The article claims that 20% of Democrats view Republicans as a threat to the nation, while on the flip side, 36% of Republicans view Democrats as a threat. A statistic that further highlights the idea that political polarization is in full swing. Furthermore, the article advances the idea that a potential third party could be key to bridging the divide between these two parties, and fostering more effective politics. And I disagree with that, but we'll get into that down the line. These demographics expose how some American voters feel about ideologies that differ from their own. Um, and with that being said, it prompts us as members of this nation to beg the question: how is a third of each side of the political spectrum, which I'm sure consists of tens of millions of people, supposed to view eye to eye on key social issues? And while the jury is still out, the general consensus is that they don't. The two party system of the United States often outputs presidential candidates that are less representative of the diverse needs and ideals of the nation due to extreme levels of polarization between the two parties. Obviously, the candidates feel obligated to satisfy the extremist fringes, limiting their appeal to the side of the political divide. Oh, I'm sorry, my error popped up. Um, This has led to the development of candidates who, rather than working towards unification, invite divisiveness by appealing to the most energetic and vocal elements of their party, typically advocating for ideologies that most likely disproportionately favor those with a particular viewpoint. And furthermore, to add to this, the influence of PACs, which are political action committees, and corporate donations, that flow to candidates who will preserve the status quo, this ends up, discouraging reform that genuinely could be beneficial to the American people. This influence has well, in the hands of a few, also discourages candidates of more diverse backgrounds or that withhold innovative policy ideas. It honestly deters them from running for office simply due to the absence of connections with these wealthy individuals. In this kind of system, electability trumping substance is more of a rule rather than a expectation. Meaning that those who are most capable of either leading or unifying the nation are not selected. And this often leads to political leaders acting on behalf of the will of their campaign contributors, which is fundamentally against their duty as a representative. Those running for presidential office who emerge as a result are often completely devoid. And yes, I use that word. It's a very strong word. They are completely devoid of the skill to cross party lines, or at least that's the trend we've seen in recently years. Also, they lack in their ability to deal with hard and long term issues. With that being said, the presidential candidates themselves owe their favorability to the two-party system, which more often than not, fails to genuinely represent the diverse interests of the American people. The only possible way a new political movement could emerge with enough force to challenge the momentum of the Democratic and Republican Party. It's as if suddenly and revolutionary there was a change in the country, something that the two parties were unable to address to the best of their abilities. With this scenario, the new movement honestly could have would have the ability to rally support by responding to the unaddressed desires of the constituents. However, providing more political parties is not without problems, as a multi-party system would likely just create more political fragmentation, uh, rising citizen tension uh, against the government, and also potentially making the decision making process more complex. And that is the last thing we need in our current state, with with all the current affairs that are going on in this world. Is more complexity. The election process should be very simple, and it should not be made complex. And if we added more parties to the already existing two-party system, we just we throw a wrench in the system that is already failing. So basically, simply put, the two party system represses diverse voices by reducing political discussion to a binary choice, making it extremely difficult for third parties or independents to gain much traction. This limitation often pigeonholes voters to make a choice between two nominees who may be deficient in expressing their values or priorities, causing a sense of disenfranchisement um, amongst the public. The overriding focus on acquiring the votes of left wing or right wing parties has the tendency to overlook, the centrist or the alternative opinions that could potentially bridge partisan rifts. And that had me thinking, what is the solution? And well, considering these dilemmas, perhaps a more radical yet necessary action plan would be to abolish political parties in general. Under a democratic government where elected officials represent their own opinions and those of their constituents, the focus would be shifted from party loyalty to actual representation. Voters would no longer be bound by the ideologies of their current parties, and the candidates would be urged to act in the best interest of their voters rather than towing the party line. Furthermore, restricting monetary contributions to political campaigns is necessary for separating the political choices politicians make from the influence that money seems to buy. Uh, by controlling campaign contributions, whether by limitations or keeping a very detailed record of financial transactions on behalf of the politicians, the American government can better mitigate the role of political lobbying, thus ensuring, that the people are the primary concern for policy making rather than the special interests of groups or donors. Ultimately, the future of democracy in the United States hinges on the political choices that we make today. If if we as a nation focus on striving to restore American democracy to its core principles and values, representing the American people, we can move toward a system where politics is not as influenced by financial incentives or social hostility, but rather instead reflects the true will of the people. And that is the idea. That is the idea of my project. Thank you very much for your time. My name is Jose Palacios, and see you on the flip side. Thank you.